In this video, we're going to take a high-level look at the family creation process. To begin, we need to create a new family file. So under Families, I'll click New. This opens the New Family Select Template File dialog. For this example, I'm going to use the generic model template, and I'll select it and click Open. When I do, Revit is going to go into the family editor, and you will see some reference planes, and those reference planes will be based on the template that you selected. For this example, we're going to create a simple cube family. Family creation can be very basic or it can be very complex, but once again, in this video, we're just going to take a look at some of the basics. What I like to do is create the framework of the family first, and really that is what you should do to create a quality family component, is begin by placing reference planes, and then you can use dimensions to control those reference planes, and then you can label dimensions with parameters, and that is what allows you to create a good parametric family. To begin, on the Create ribbon in the Datum panel, click Reference Plane, and this will start the Reference Plane tool. For this example, we'll create a basic cube, so I'm going to place a reference plane here for the left, the right, and then the front and back. So I'll do what would be the back first, and then the front here at the bottom of the drawing area. And then I'll click Modify to end the command. When I select a reference plane, you can see that there's a handful of parameters, and we can name reference planes, and there's a lot of things we can do, but we're not going to dive into that right now. Okay, at this point I have some reference planes here, and I am going to place dimensions to control these reference planes now. So you can do that here on the Modify ribbon in the Measure panel by clicking Aligned Dimension, or if you switch to the Annotate ribbon, you can see the dimension tools here in the Dimension panel. Aligned Dimension is used the most, so I'm going to start there, and then I will click to select the left, and then the center left right reference plane, and then the right reference plane here. And then I will click above the reference planes to place the dimension. And the first thing I want to do is create an equality constraint. So I'm going to look for this EQ symbol that has a red slash through it. And when I click it, an equality constraint is created between those reference planes. I'll do the same thing here for our horizontal reference planes and create an equality constraint. And then I'll click Modify. So what this does, or what the equality constraint does, is it ensures that the left and right, or the front and back reference planes, are always equidistant from the center. And then, and depending on the family that you're creating, that may or may not be what you want. But in terms of this basic cube, and there's a lot of situations where that's a common workflow. Next, we can place dimensions for the overall length and width. So I'm going to place two more aligned dimensions and just select the outer reference planes, and then I'll click Modify. Now, when I select one of those overall dimensions, you can see in the contextual ribbon that there's a label dropdown. And what this does is it allows us to label a dimension with a parameter. So what we need to do is create a parameter. And we can do that in the Family Types dialog. On the Modify ribbon in the Properties panel, you can click Family Types. And this same panel is also available on the Create ribbon. I'll click Family Types to open the Family Types dialog, and then at the bottom I will click New Parameter. To begin, I will enter length into the name field, And then you can select the discipline, and whatever discipline you select will control the type of parameter options. And for this example, and for a lot of components, you need length parameters. And so we'll start with just the common discipline, and the type of parameter is length. And then lastly, we can control where we're going to group that parameter. Right here in the family types dialog, we can control the heading, and then also what you select here will determine that high-level grouping in either the properties palette or type properties dialog, depending on whether it's a type or instance parameter. So I'll leave it set to dimensions, and then we'll leave it set to type as well. But this is where you could control whether it's a type or instance parameter. Next, I'll click OK, and you can see we have a length parameter. I'm going to do the same thing and create a parameter for width, and then one more for height. And at this point, we have 3 parameters. If you want, you can move those up or down to help with the organization here. Okay, next I will click OK. And when I select this overall dimension here for the length, I can now expand that label drop-down and select length. And when I do, you can see it now appears next to that dimension value, and our length parameter also updates based on that dimension. I'll select the other one for width, and we'll change that. And if I go back to the family types dialog, you can see those values update. So if you don't initially input a value, they'll just update to whatever the dimension is. And then you can change them and make sure that those reference planes are updating. That means that everything's working like it should. Okay, before we talk about the height, let's go ahead and create the geometry. So just to summarize what we've done so far, we've created reference planes, which is going to control the framework of our family. Then we place dimensions to control how those reference planes are going to behave. And then we labeled 2 of those dimensions with a parameter so that those parameters will drive the dimensions. And now we can create geometry. On the Create ribbon, there's a Forms panel, and there are 5 tools to create solid geometry, as well as 5 tools to create void geometry. For our simple cube, we are going to use the extrusion tool, or to be more specific, the solid extrusion tool. So I will click extrusion. And now Revit goes into sketch mode. And what we need to do is create a sketch that is going to be extruded. And in the contextual ribbon, there's a draw gallery with several options. I will click rectangle. And then I'll use the reference planes to snap my sketch to. And after I click the 2 corners of the rectangle, since I snapped them to the reference planes, you can see padlock icons. And when I click those padlocks, I'm locking that sketch line to the reference plane. So when those reference planes move, the sketch or the extrusion will then update along with it, which is what we want to happen. Next, I will click Finish Edit Mode to create the extrusion. And now you can see, well, it's maybe a little bit difficult to see, but there is an extrusion created and it is now constrained to those reference planes. Lastly, let's talk about the height. We hadn't really done that much yet. So obviously we're creating 3D geometry, so there's a height aspect here, and we created a parameter for that. And if I go to the front view here, you can see our extrusion. And we're really we don't have anything controlling the height of this extrusion at this point. So I can simply use this arrow control to drag it up and down. Now, a couple things here. I could create another reference plane here for the top, and we could constrain that, and that would be perfectly fine, and that's what I do a lot of times. Or if this extrusion is, the bottom of it is always going to be at the reference level, then we could use this extrusion end parameter as well. And what we can do is we can click Associate Family Parameter next to the extrusion end parameter, and we can associate this extrusion end parameter of our extrusion to the height family parameter that we created. And then click OK. And when we do, now our height or our extrusion end is being controlled by the height parameter. And just a quick note, if you go that route, or really either route you go, you also want to make sure that the bottom is constrained in some way. And you never want to leave it up to chance on how that's going to be controlled. So what I can do is I can simply drag it down to the bottom to our reference level here, or if we had another reference plane. And when you do that, but more specifically when you snap it to the reference level or a reference plane, you'll see that padlock icon, and you can simply click that to lock it. Now if I go to the 3D view, you can see our little box here. And if I go to the family types dialog, then I can update these parameter values, and we can just double check to make sure everything is updating appropriately. So what this is called is flexing the family. We adjust parameter values and then make sure that the geometry is updating accordingly. And I'll set them all equal to each other, and we have a simple cube.
Howdy! Thanks for watching. If you'd like more free content from Click2BIM, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have affordable subscription options at click2bim.com, where you can access all of our videos. We also have an amazing search feature that allows you to search through every single word in all of our videos to help you quickly find the answers to your questions.